Christmas. It's Mozz, it's Chaz, and we want to talk about defenders and what is the sound of one fist defending. In the kitchen of hell, we learn that the devils we know are here to defend us all. Hello and welcome once again to Ashes, episode 6 of the Don't Get Defensive podcast. I am, as always, your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, right next to me, here in the studio, well, not in studio, but across the internet, is my skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey, Mozz. Always glad to have you. So, tonight's episode, Ashes to Ashes, we got Douglas Petrie and Marco Ramirez getting the credit. This episode was written by Drew Goddard and Marco Ramirez. And this is a pretty good episode. I liked it as episodes go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I definitely thought it was a great episode, and the cliffhanger that they leave you on is pretty intense. You get some sort of finality that you don't really get in certain episodes. It's a big surprise, and it was pretty badass.
Yes. One of the things I really like is that you get at the very beginning, and I thought this was such a great bit of, maybe heavy-handed symbolism, maybe film school 101, but for me, it was cool. You have Alexandra listening on her old Victrola and I believe it's the classical piece she was having played live for her a couple episodes back, and all of a sudden the record starts skipping.
Right.
And you see her, examine the record and being, sort of upset by this because, of course, this is very symbolic of what the overall problem is for the hand in this season, which is that, you have this thing that they've kept alive for hundreds of years, but as they say, every so often, even if something doesn't come out to destroy it, the thing just wants to decay itself. And it's an interesting point about, they keep on saying in this, our hand bad guys, that they are fighting for life, that this is what that they fight for life. And it makes this interesting idea, I think. Maybe I'm going to get a little esoteric here, but that, maybe death isn't the bad guy.
Right.
That actually clinging to this life is the bad thing. That this person who is saying we will not be dismissed, that they really are evil, because of course it is about their personal aggrandizement and their personal continuation of life at the expense of everyone, literally everyone, at the expense of the entire city of New York. So I thought that was a great start to it, and I think it makes a good point. And of course, throughout this episode, the specter of life and death is central, as we have our heroes. Of course.
Well, I also thought it was sort of mirroring how everything is not flowing according to her plan. Like, her plan is the music, and it keeps skipping, and it keeps bumping, and the plan is falling apart, and it's not orchestrating the way that it was supposed to.
Yes, well, this is true, but I think one of the things that is the thematic of this episode is, yes, it's not going according to her plan, but she's the last person to realize it. And again, when you think about it, when she's looking at the record, and she's like, how could this be scratched? How could I worked so hard to protect this record for 200 years, how could it have gotten damaged? And, now, of course, one could point out, well, you are playing it on a freaking 200-year-old Victrola. Those things were not exactly state-of-the-art hyperphonic, stereo systems, That's not exactly a diamond-tipped needle you got in there. That's, that is very much an old tin needle against an old piece of wax that probably... you're lucky you got this to last this long. An old piece of shellac, really. And for what it's worth, Victrolas were never known for their sound quality. That was like the big thing for Edison, is he very much did not like the discs that Victrola premiered, because his cylinders gave better sound quality. But Victrola, because they could produce so much so cheaply, became the dominant brand over Edison, because he wouldn't go to discs. I always found that to be an interesting story because it sort of parallels the old Betamax VHS issue where people said Betamax was better, but VHS was good enough and was cheaper and plentiful. And if you're good enough and cheap and plentiful, people don't care that there's a better option for you. They care that what they can get is going to be good enough. And of course, we have Suwatu's head in this episode. Suwatu, the first of the hand to die, and literally the first of the hand to die. Because we know that the hand must have been 5 fingers, and so these 5 fingers have been together since they left Kunlun. And now one is gone. Now they have lost maybe their thumb, maybe their pinky finger. We're not sure, but
I was just gonna say, which finger did you think Sawande would be?
It's an interesting question. I kind of feel like. I'm forgetting his name. The Japanese guy is kind of the pinky because he doesn't do much.
Okay, I can see that.
He hunts bears, and he basically he does his own thing. He is not contributing to anything. I think Gao is probably the thumb because I think she actually does a lot of the work, and I think Alexandra's definitely.
I'd have to agree. The pointer.
Yeah, she's the pointer. She points where everyone's going. And then, so I guess Sawatu and what's his name? Bakudo.
Bakudo,
one of them's the middle finger, and one of them's the
ring finger.
Yeah. I'm not.
I would say Sawande. I think Sawande would be the middle finger for sure.
Middle finger, yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly given the middle finger to. I don't know. For what it's worth, you think about it, like he's the one who really brings all this down on everyone.
Yeah, he's sort of like the enforcer, and Muga. I keep wanting to call him Mugatu. Yeah. Bakudo seems to be interested in affections of Colleen, so I would give him the ring finger.
Yes. Well, but what it is that Sawatu, he's the guy that brings in Luke Cage because and I think this is what I always say about one of the things that I think emphasizes about the Defenders is that the world has changed, and this old guard of the hand hasn't really figured that out yet. And what I think is kind of interesting is that when we think about it, we got we had Gao in Daredevil. We had Bakudo in Iron Fist. Each of these characters have been in the periphery, although we didn't connect them. Okay. We didn't connect them all together until Defenders. So we didn't necessarily know that Bakudo... Well, I guess we did know Bakudo and Gao were part of the same organization, although we didn't know the extent of how they worked together.
Right. He always seemed like an underling.
Exactly.
Until now. I was very surprised to see him have that much of a leadership role.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Honestly, yeah. Bakudo just really seems out of his element.
Yeah.
I don't think at any point does Bakudo seem like a guy that should be running the hand. And for what it's worth, I don't think anyone even. I do think Bakudo is probably like the junior member of the hand.
Yeah.
I think Murakami. Is probably a much more respected member, even though he does so much less for the hand.
Yeah. Right.
He's just because for Murakami, I think it's just about he never wanted to conquer the world.
Right. He just wanted a piece of it.
Yeah. He's kind of like Kraven the Hunter in that way. He is this. He wanted to be an immortal warrior, and that's all he wanted. He didn't need all these trappings that Alexandra and Gao and Buck. He didn't need power, and I think it's telling that he's the only one without an army. He's the only one that we never see have underlings or helpers because that's not what he wants. He is, in many ways, I kind of think of him as sort of the the wild man, the proto wild man character, in Kaido. He is by himself. He does what he does. He doesn't need to be a part of this. He's just here because we're all in this together. He comes when you call, but for the most part, he just wants to be alone. He just wants to enjoy the fact that he's immortal. It's like, why was that so hard? It's like we wanted immortality, we got immortality. What am I missing? Yes, but of course, as we see, immortality is not all it is cracked up to be. Especially if, and I think it's maybe even one of these interesting points in this is that they all have got to be about the same age.
I don't know. Bakuto looks like he was just like maybe drafted into the fold in the 70s, maybe the 90s. I don't know.
No. They all are from Kunlun. They are all outcasts.
Yeah, but they all found their way. I guess they left at the same time. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, and we know that if Alexandra had left, then that had to go all the way back to New Amsterdam. And so they're all about the same age, but it seems like it seems like Alexandra's the one who's having all the problems because I think she is the one who is just stressing out the most.
Right.
I guess that's maybe unfair to her because Gao seems to be holding up okay, and Gao carries her own weight in the whole situation. Although
they do mention that this that there have been coups before concerning the leadership of the Hand. So if this was one of the last times that the last time the coup happened, Alexandra took control, obviously she's going to be stressed out more because their success depends on her now, and she's left holding the bill. So,
well, I actually kind of took it that she had always been in charge, and that everyone else had been trying to remove her from power.
Oh, so fair enough.
She's just been holding on because, and I kind of got the idea that nobody really liked Alexandra. That she kind of, and especially when we get, don't know if that's this episode or next episode, where Murakami basically says, no, it has to be this episode. Yes. Murakami says to her, I was reluctant to leave, not because I didn't want to leave Kunlun, but because I just didn't want to leave with you. That I knew you were bad news from the start. And, if I could have avoided this, I certainly would have. But we get, basically, getting back to our heroes, because we're speaking a lot about our villains, but getting back to our heroes, they realize that, the Hand wants Danny. They know that Danny is the key, that Danny must be able to open something. Which is like, how was he open something? I said, I don't know. They're focusing on that. What do we need to open? And we do eventually find all that stuff. But they've come to this idea that basically the best thing to do is to keep Danny out of the hands.
Right. And since they know he's too much of a baby to follow a plan, they need to restrain him.
Yeah, it does come down to that. And it's, it's an interesting question. I'm not sure. And for what it's worth, I think that what you can absolutely say is that expressly because of the actions they took, that's how he gets captured.
Well, that's true too.
Because essentially, I mean, just to jump ahead a few paces, what happens is, they do not, Luke Cage knocks out Danny, and they do this thing where the Iron Fist meets, the Luke Cage's fist, and everyone gets blown back. Danny is trying to make this point that they're trying to separate us, they're trying to break us up, they're trying to. That basically, if we get into this argument, we become what the hand needs us to be. This is what they try to do. They try to turn us against each other, and he does speak from experience because, of course, this was very much what was going on with Colleen last episode, where it was turning Colleen against him, and and this manipulation between everyone, And what we essentially see here is, this leads to the big fight. And in the fight, Luke Cage and Danny Rand, collide. We get the irresistible force meeting the immovable object, and the irresistible force loses. And as the result, they tie up Danny, and he's knocked out. Conveniently knocked out, unconscious for a prolonged period of time. Claire's.
Well, no, but isn't it Jess that knocks him out though?
Oh, is it Jess?
Yeah,
you're right. You are absolutely right. Yeah, Jess comes and kicks him with her super strength. Yeah.
Yeah, she goes, "I'm sorry," or she apologizes to him, and I think she punches him right in the face. And I was like, "Wow, okay, so
yeah,
that's interesting."
Well, yeah, because she is, not for nothing. As much as she complains in this episode about why is she the only one who doesn't know karate, she actually, her superhuman strength actually gives her a lot of advantages over all these people that do know karate.
Right.
Just knowing karate isn't that good if you're up against people who are bulletproof and superhumanly strong.
Right.
So she does knock out. You're right. She does knock out Danny, and Danny conveniently is unconscious for enough time that they can have an expanded bit of story. And what I was saying is, if that Claire's not there, because if Claire was there, she'd be like, people when they're knocked out like this, when they have this severe of a concussion, that's really, really bad. If you're out for like you get a concussion, and you get back up, okay, that's it's not good.
Yeah.
But if you're awake, but if you're completely knocked out, dead to the world for this period of time, that implies severe damage. But of course, this is comic books, and that isn't the case.
And they're superheroes.
Yes, exactly. Can use his chi to heal himself, we imagine. But because he's tied up, and of course they decide, Luke Cage is going to be the one to watch him, which I liked because I thought we've got this great interaction between Luke and Danny.
Right.
And we really see that groundwork being laid for the idea that we should have a Power Man and Iron Fist series or a Power Man Iron Fist storyline. And I hope they are shooting Luke Cage right now. In fact, I think they may have just wrapped it, season 2, and I do hope that Danny Cage is in it. I do hope so. Not Danny Cage, Danny Rand, because I do think that there is. First of all, because I think that Iron Fist needs that redemption as a character.
Sure.
I think he does his best work when he is working with Luke Cage. That's my thought. World can disagree as they'd like to.
I mean, this scene was sort of more interesting and endearing between the two of them than previous scenes, and Danny Rand seems to be being less of an annoying character for me as this show has progressed. He's got his moments.
He does have his moments. I actually think that he really does come into his own in the Defenders. I think that this was not a Scott Buck property. Is probably a lot of the advantage to it. I think those people who have seen the Inhumans know that the problem may well have just been Scott Buck. It wasn't Finn. It wasn't anyone else. It was just Scott Buck ruining perfectly good characters. Which I think actually, to me, makes a great point about people that are so mean to poor old Ben Affleck about Batfleck. Because I actually think that, I don't think that, Ben Affleck was that bad of a Batman. I think that he just had some bad scripts and bad direction in the one movie we got to see him in as Batman.
Indeed.
And so I think people, when they say, oh, but he's so sullen about how bad everything is. Like, well, yeah, because everyone's blaming him. He didn't write the line Martha. He didn't write any of that. That wasn't him. It's like he was told that that's the scene, and he played the scene. And, there's only so much an actor can do in that kind of a moment. You either play the scene or you go home, And, I think of it akin sort of to when Ryan Reynolds played Green Lantern, because basically they told him, if you don't play Green Lantern, you're not going to, Well, actually, no, not Green Lantern, but when he did the original Deadpool and Wolverine, although Green Lantern was a similar thing, and they said if you don't do this Deadpool, we're never going to do a Deadpool film, and he really wanted to do the Deadpool film, so that's why he knew it was a bad film when he did Wolverine Origins, and really, actually, I don't think Wolverine Origins is that bad of a film.
No, I thought the movie was all right, but how they handled that character was really, really terrible.
Yeah, well, yeah, how they finished that character, yeah. I actually thought Ronald Reynolds did a great job as Deadpool before they Deadpool him, you know?
Right, exactly.
But yeah, but that I think is the case with poor Ben Affleck and poor Finn Jones, you know, that I think they got put into a situation with people that they're taking the blame for it, but it's not them that are writing the scripts or directing these movies. They are just the actors that are doing the job, and they're doing the best they can with what they've been given. And when someone tells you, here's a ridiculous line, we want you to read it, and you read it with as much conviction as you can, you know, it doesn't help your case, but, you know, it also says that, you know, at least you're doing it with as much conviction as you can.
Yeah. I got to say, the new Justice League movie is awesome. It's so much fun. And he's great in it. I like this version of Bruce Wayne a lot more than the version we got in Batman vs. Superman.
Well, that's good. And I've always felt that, you know, I've always thought that Ben Affleck could do a great Batman. I thought he could do a great...
He's a wonderful actor. He's a wonderful actor.
He is. And I think he can do dark and brooding, but he can also do jovial. I think of, you know, him in Chasing Amy. Which is a great thing where he has to fluctuate between being very moody and sullen and being very light and fun. And I think that informs that character well. And so, yeah, I'm looking for. I still have not seen it because I don't have the money to go see a movie yet. Hopefully soon. Although, and I'll tell you what, this whole movie pass thing you've been telling me, I really want to get into this because, you know, here's the only thing that I think about. It's like, okay, for me, going to a movie once a month is easy. But, you know, then I got to but if I take my wife and my kids, you know, and now it's $40 that we have to account for every month. And we could probably do it, but it's like, now it's a little bit more. And it's the same $40 if I do go to them with it. But it's like, do I have a movie to see with everybody every month? And do I even have a movie I'm going to see every month? Because not for nothing, I also have time issues, and you know, Marvel and DC don't make a movie once a month. So.
Right. No, but it's amazing. I just signed up. They gave me an even better deal than before. It was $9.99 a month, and they said, hey, if you want to extend it for the full year, we'll give it to you at $6 a month, $6.99 a month. I was like, okay. So I just paid for the year, and now for the whole year, I have one free movie every day.
That's pretty awesome. That is pretty awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you are going to take the family out, make that a day where, you know, you only pay for 3 movies now. But any movie that comes out, if you've got nothing better to do, you come in, you're home from work, and you're like, hey, let me stop in and see a movie. Or if it's a Saturday, you got nothing to do. Instead of sitting at home watching another episode of Frasier, you can go see a movie.
Yes. See, this is how you know that Mozz does not have a wife and kids. You just take all your free time and just go to a movie. It's like, oh, yes. See, I remember, if they had this when me and my wife first started dating, yes, absolutely. We would have totally been all over that, you know, and that would have been awesome. But not so much. But anyway, let's get back to this film. So basically Stick decides. So basically we have 2 parallel stories. One is Jessica and Matt go to figure out what they can about what's going on at Midland Circle, and they wind up back at the home of the architect, and they realize that the architect has hidden plans inside the piano, and they get them out, and they see, like, okay, this is the dome, and this is what they want to unlock. And then we see, of course, back with Stick has decided that, you know, the only way to destroy the hand is to kill the Iron Fist, because if we kill the Iron Fist, then they don't have their key. Which, you know, I guess
it's sound logical reasoning, and he's so clever with the way he does it. It almost makes you wonder, like, how long has he been planning this exact move. You know?
Yeah, well, I get the feeling that he is very much ahead of the game, and for what it's worth, I mean, here's what you either say he is doing that, bat shark repellent level of planning, or it's just a huge plot hole that he happens to have the incense that he knows will actually knock out Luke Cage, and suppress the Iron Fist and do all these things, that he can actually that he was able to do this so well. And I kind of think I mean, it makes for a fun story while you're watching it. It is kind of fridge logic that I don't realize how the big gaping plot hole in it until much later. Although they do set it up a little bit. Well, they sort of make a point with it later, which is that Luke Cage, his skin's bulletproof, but the rest of him isn't. Meaning that right. It doesn't have to be some special, 7 herbs and spices that's in the incense. It just has to be something that'll knock you out. So it could have just been pure straight up hashish he was burning. A little bit of opium, just let it waft. And so long as he knows not to breathe in at the right time, he can waft it over to Luke, and he's going to be and Luke's going to get kind of sleepy on the subject. It doesn't have to be as fancy as all that. It really could be something just that simple. He just has to know not to breathe the smoke. And I'm sure he's a guy who's very, and we see him practicing his breathing beforehand. So you see he's like, putting himself in a position to, regulate his breathing in such a unique way. And of course, as we saw in Daredevil, the Hand trains their ninjas to not even breathe. And I think that is sort of the idea that we're left to see there is that it's just straight up Maui Wowie for all we know, but it's enough that it's enough to knock out Luke Cage and the Iron Fist, but because of that, when Elektra shows, they're all kind of down a man, and she makes short work of everybody, and takes the Iron Fist and leaves. Yeah. And that's our great little Empire Strikes Back moment with the villains triumphant. Because they have their Iron Fist, and we get there, and Alexandra saying, "See, I told you the Black Sky would fix it, and the Black, you all doubted the Black Sky would solve our problems. And look at that, the Black Sky did just what I said she would."
Yeah, it's funny, in this episode, somebody was always saving somebody from certain death, Like, they're all about to, it seems like, attack Alexandra, right? Or at least the Japanese guy is Marutu, what his name is?
Murakami.
So Murakami's about to, challenge her for the throne and say, "I've had enough. Something needs to change." Yeah. He's stepping up, and he's like, "I'm not alone." And the other 3 step out and like, "Oh, it's about to be a coup." And all of a sudden, she walks in. First of all, actually, it wasn't other people. It's just Elektra saving people in this episode. She saves Danny and comes in and then saves Alexandra.
Yes. But all for her own advancement. And for what it's worth, saving Alexandra was basically, a 5-minute reprieve. Because as soon as, and there's Alexandra, sitting there saying, "See, I'm the one who took care of it. I'm the one that was the boss." And of course, she's ignoring Elektra because she is still seeing her as just the Black Sky. Right. And of course, Elektra comes up from behind and cuts off another finger of the hand.
Yes, what I thought would have been really interesting is if they had somehow coerced her into doing it. I was really looking forward. When that happened, I was like, "Oh, the betrayal runs way deeper than I thought." I was thinking they got to her, but it was a surprise to them too. So I was like, "Oh, I thought that was a little bit of a lost opportunity. That would have been pretty cool."
Well, yes, I think it would have been very cool. As with any kind of storytelling, there's always another way to make it cool. But I think the way they did it, where it is just, and I think it's meaningful for Elektra that she's not being manipulated. Because I think if there's anything we gained from any of Elektra's arc in this story, it's that she doesn't want to be controlled. She doesn't want anyone to be the boss of her. She doesn't want to be told what her destiny is, because of course that's the whole thing, is that her whole life has been defined by these two crazy cults, the Chaste and the Hand, who both identified her for some reason as a black sky. And it's kind of funny. It reminds me, there's a great episode of King of the Hill where they have this great, Buddhist monk who has passed away. And he says he is going to be reincarnated in the Americas. He says he wants to be reincarnated as an American. And so they come to Texas and they're looking to find it. And of course, because the Khans want their daughter to be declared a reincarnation of of this great monk, because it'll have all this cachet in their community. They want Connie to be the one to be declared this reincarnation, and they're going over like how, in order to be declared this reincarnation, they put out items that the person had previously owned, and then if they select the item that belonged to them, then they declare them a reincarnation. And what happens is Connie's sitting there and she's very nervous, and all of a sudden Bobby, who realizes that she doesn't want this, runs in and selects something, and they say, oh, he's the reincarnation. And then the whole episode is centered around Bobby trying to decide, is he going to be this reincarnated monk or not? And in the end, there's this great little scene where they say, you have to pick something from here. And he says, I can pick anything on the sheet. And they say, yes. And he says, then I choose Connie because her reflection is in this mirror. He says, then I choose to be with Connie because I do not wish to be this monk. And later you see the older monk and the younger monk talking, and he says, but he selected the right thing. It was the mirror that he was supposed to select. And he says, yeah, but let him have this. And it comes into this idea that, maybe she could have had a normal life if no one had insisted that she had to be the black sky. She could have been like Bobby Hill, just living his life with his own wisdom and philosophy of a monk in his own little weird West Texas way. But he wouldn't have had to have been. He wouldn't have had to have been what these people molded him to be. And in many ways, I think that's why she has this affinity for Matt, because Matt is a guy who got to make his own life. He still is a fighter and a warrior, but he partially because Stick actually got too afraid to be with him. But he got to make his own life. And I think that's kind of the point we're supposed to take from this, is that, when she kills Alexandra, it's because she is not Alexandra's pet. She may be the black sky, but the black sky isn't your weapon. As we say, it's all well and good to create a living weapon, but most weapons can't get up off the table and start killing whomever they want. So and so I think that is what is good there, and that is how we end this episode, with Alexandra dead and Electra Nachios basically claiming her own name and saying,
"You work for me now."
Yeah, and not for nothing, I don't think the other fingers of the hand are. The last three fingers are in a position to argue.
Yeah, at least not in the moment.
Not in the moment. That much is for certain. Okay, so Mozz, that has been Ashes to Ashes. If people would like to talk about ashes with you or other ashes, where can they find you?
They can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And, of course, you can always find me via email at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And, of course, follow me on Twitter as I live tweet things. Recently, I live tweeted the 200th episode of Teen Titans, and I found that to be a joyful fun. And, of course, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is coming back, and I'll live tweet that, too, soon. But you can always tweet along with me at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieESSER. Look for the two E's in the middle for quality. All right, Jive Turkeys. It has been another episode of Don't Get Defensive. Always remember, the best defense is a good offense. Good night.